Wednesday, January the 28th. Lake level's about 9.40, a little under 9.5, 909.5, which is about 7.5 feet low. It looks like it's dropped a few inches since last week. Water temperature actually warmed up quite a bit yesterday. About 43, 44 degrees when I got out, and I was fishing the main lake area where the water's pretty clear. The river arm would probably be a little colder, but it got up to about 46. Some places the surface got up to 47 degrees yesterday. Weather's been absolutely gorgeous. Fish have really been biting good. Now, a lot of that deep bite is probably going to change here pretty quick. It seems like about mid-February, a lot of them deep fish start to move and start moving in towards the shallows. They don't necessarily go shallow, but they just start moving out of their deep water wintertime habitat areas. But there's several different ways to catch them. We catch them on a jerkbait, a grub. See, should have had these out and ready, but you catch them on a jerkbait early. And if you get wind, you can pretty much catch them on a jerkbait throughout the day. Now, most of the jerkbait fish I'm catching are on main lake secondary points. The key is looking for isolated cedar trees, the corners of docks, the shade on docks, you know, whatever side shady when the sun's up real high. But it's definitely better in the morning along with the A-rig. Now, the deep fish have been biting all day long. They bite as good from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon as they do first thing in the morning. Most of them I've been catching on a nice fishing jig, which we've talked about for the last couple weeks. But there's two different sizes. And Sportsman Factory Outlet there in Springfield has got them both. They're about the only one around that I know that has them. And usually about the time he gets a shipment in, he sells out. And then but I was in there the other day and he seems to have plenty. But there's a 5/8 ounce. And then there's a 7/8 ounce. The 7/8 ounce I usually throw on 15 to 17 pound line because they will get stuck quite a bit. The 5/8 ounce I usually fish on a 12 pound line. And you know, I don't know if it matters so much on the color because we're fishing them so deep. The fish probably can only distinguish a couple different colors. But you know, we've been catching them on a blue and chrome, a blue and white. This is a black and chrome. And one of my favorite ones is kind of a bone color with a little chartreuse on the head. But I think a lot of that color is between our ears. Because I think down there, fishing at 45, 60 foot deep, the fish can't tell the difference what color it is. But a lot of the fish I was catching was on gravel flat points. But that seems like it's kind of dried up on me. I've only got a few places where I can get bit like that. The bite that's come on better is the fish out there over that real deep water. Which, in the last couple reports, I kept saying, you know, the fish ought to be in the centers of the creeks. They ought to be out there on the main lake channels. Well, it seems like that's where I'm catching them now. I'm, you know, setting anywhere from 80 to 100 foot of water. And I'm fishing a lot of them bluffs. And what I'll do is I'll follow it out to about 80 foot, but right where it drops anywhere from, you know, it'd be 60 or 80. Then when it makes a hard drop to that 100, I've been keeping right along the edge of that break. And the fish, a lot of them in the open water suspended. Some of them are coming out of trees. But I'm probably catching as many out of the open water. And it's crazy how deep some of these fish are. Yesterday we caught some fish that came out of 80 foot of water. And, you know, I took the GoPro out to get some good footage to show you what was fish and what was trees on the electronics and stuff. And we had an awesome day of fishing. But I had some technical problems with my GoPro. I had it somehow inverted, and I didn't have it close enough to my fish finder where you could actually see the bait and the fish. But I've got all that figured out now, so while the fish are biting deep real good, I'm going to do some footage on fishing deep structure with the Lowrance, what to look for, how to tell the difference between a fish and a shad and a tree, and different pieces of structure. But, you know, a lot of times we wonder how far the fish can see. Well, you know, I can tell you that them fish can see a good 30 foot. Because several times yesterday when we would drop the bait, when my bait would get to 30 foot, I'd see a fish from either 60 or 70 foot start streaking up. And that's what's pretty neat when you can watch that on your electronics. And like I say, I had some awesome video of it, it just didn't come out right. But, you know, that bite's going to change in another couple weeks, and the jerkbait bite should get a little better along with the Alabama rig. Now, with them fish I'm finding up there suspended, it's also the A-rig's, you know, bite's getting a little bit better too. A couple other things, I am fishing deep. Like yesterday, it got real slick, not a breath of wind. And a couple times during the day, the fish got a little fussy. They'd look at that ice fishing jig, but they wouldn't bite it. So what I was doing was taking a 3/8 ounce ball head jig, put it up inside of a 3.5 inch gets it. Either gray will work or smoke. This one here is kind of a salt and pepper. But like I said, I'm using a 3/8 ounce head because I'm fishing it so deep. And I normally put a swivel, kind of like I do a drop shot, up about 16 inches or so, help keep a lot of that line twist out as deep as we're fishing it. Now that ice fishing jig, you do get line twist issues with it because it's got no swivel. But when your line twist gets real bad, what I'll do is I'll cut the bait off, drag the, you know, let about half the line out and just idle for a few minutes. Let it drag behind the boat with no bait on it, reel it up, and that'll get the twist out so you're good to go for a while. Another thing you can catch them on both deep and shallow is a little 4-inch grub, about a 3/16 or 1/4 ounce head. Now this one's got a bigger head, this has got a 3/8 ounce because I was fishing it deep. Salt and pepper, you know, like the same color that gets it I showed you will work. And we're fishing this either vertical or in some of the areas where we're throwing a jerkbait around the cedar trees and on secondary points. Now you will get it stuck quite a little bit around the cedar trees, but this seems to work when they won't bite that jerkbait when there's no wind or no cloud cover up. You can fish the grub shallow. Now one thing I haven't fished very much is a jig, but I'm sure the fish are biting a jig because a lot of the fish I'm catching out there in that real deep water are belching crawdads. They're full of crawdads. So I'm sure if a person wants to slow down and fish the jig, you can catch some fish on it. But I've been catching so many fish out there deep, it's been a lot more fun doing that. The majority of them are keepers. I did have a couple in the 4-pound range yesterday, but most of them have been 2.25 pound fish. Most of my better fish have been coming on the jerkbaits, but there you're not getting too many bites. You're having to cover a lot of water. So, like I say, that bite, the jerkbait A-rig's just going to get better, as well as the jig bite. And the deep bite, probably going to have it for a couple more weeks. Looks like we got some weather coming in this weekend. But if anybody's wanting to go out on a guide trip and learn how to do some deep fishing and use your electronics, now is the time, you know, before them fish start to break up and move. So till next week, good luck, good fishing.